Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne, and today I'm going to be doing a creepy challenge where I take the 5 basic senses and turn them into monster designs. I want to make sure that every single detail on these monster designs are really speaking to one of the 5 senses, and we are starting with sight. So your sense of sight, as you probably know, just refers to your ability to perceive things in your environment based on what light you are receiving into your eyeballs. So I'm going to get mostly inspired here by the anatomy of the eye itself, like the eyeball, the optic nerve, all the other little capillaries and veins around your eyes. And I also want to include things like the rods and cones and the full spectrum of light. So we're actually going to be using rainbows in this design, which is typically not very scary, but I think actually in combination with all the creepy membrane and like ocular elements of this design, I think the rainbow actually will be kind of spooky in its own way. So for her hair, I wanted to make these little braids that have eyeballs embedded into them. I wanted the ends of her braids to look like nerves. The optic nerve is how your eyeball sends the information it's receiving into your brain, so that's a very important part of your vision. I also wanted to make sure that outside of the pastel rainbow that we're seeing in her hair and also emitting from her hands in these cone shapes, that we mostly stick to a sort of natural bloody red and pink color. I wanted to really give off the memory of looking up at the sun with your eyes closed and seeing like the redness that you see when a bright light is shining towards your face, but you have your eyes closed. So I think what I'm really emulating is your eyelids, but I wanted to include that in sort of a membrane around as kind of like a skirt cover-up sort of thing. Her outfit kind of came to me very organically, so I just sort of drew what I thought of. She almost looks sort of like a magical girl, but I also wanted her to be profoundly creepy, so instead of just having her eyes where they belong in her skull, I decided that as a monster she would be able to pop them out and have them look around corners and stuff for her. They're almost like the eye stalks of a snail or a slug, but in her case it's a human eyeball that floats around her head on the leash of her ocular nerve. Now they are still connected to her eye sockets, but she can pop them out at will and basically just use them however she likes, as long as it's within range of her own head. I thought this would be a really creepy design, and I can imagine a lot of really scary scenes where you think you're safe and then you glance at the corner and you see one of those little eyeballs peeking around the corner at you and know that you're within her sight even though you cannot see her. I also decided to give her a camera because, of course, the anatomy of the eye is also very similar to the way that a camera shutter works, which I think is very cool. I also put sort of a clutch of eyeballs on her like lower back region. This was mainly for this silhouette. What their purpose is, I actually am not sure. I think they might be replacements for if one of her eyes gets totally snapped off. I think she can maybe just pop it back in. Perhaps she can like sew the nerve back to one of her replacement eyeballs. But yeah, in the end, her outfit kind of looks like sort of a magical girl or like a showgirl kind of outfit, almost like she's at the circus, which also made me think about like, the cruel practice of having like freaks at the circus. So maybe that's her origin. Maybe she was being trained as a circus freak and she decided enough is enough and she's breaking herself out. That makes her a little more sympathetic and a monster that perhaps we could root for. I like the idea too of her being a photographer and trying to show everyone the world as she sees it, which would be quite different since her eyes do not move the same way that ours do. In the past, I have made these videos and asked you guys for character names for each of these. With this one, I'm going to select my favorite names from the comment section, and I'm going to pin my choices at the top after a certain amount of time. So if you have an idea on what you would like her to be named, please leave it down below. Next up, we have taste. Now this one I had a vision for, and I actually ended up taking some reference photos of my own tongue, which I will not be showing you guys because they're pretty gross. Like if you look close up to the tongue, it already does look quite horrifying, I feel, especially underneath. If you flip up your tongue right now and look in a mirror, you will notice there are some strange blue veins under your tongue, most likely, and all kinds of just weird sort of shapes and bulges and stuff. So the tongue is actually the only muscle in your whole body that isn't attached on both sides. It's just a it's just a single point at which it's connected. And I wanted to kind of give her this cute, like, you know, those bunny caps that people wear. They're like balaclavas, but with bunny ears. It's kind of like that, except instead of cute bunny ears or pigtails, they're two giant wet tongues. And the central part around her head is actually like the uvula in the back of the throat. So she's peering out at you from the darkness behind the uvula. I'm gonna be honest, I completely over-rendered this piece like really badly. I think I was just having fun working on it and trying to get like the painterly modeled colors of the tongue really accurate to real life, but in the end I think I ended up making it quite muddy, so I do apologize for that. I might try to take another crack at it later. I also wanted to involve the teeth a lot. You know, when you're tasting things, we're usually chewing as well. So I gave her this little crown of bent metal that has teeth bracketed to it, like some kind of mutilated braces. I also have some teeth hung around her shoulders. I had sort of like a cultist idea for her, so that was the driving force of her outfit. And I also wanted her belly to be transparent, like some frogs have bellies that you can see their organs inside. So that's what I chose for her, and I tried to stick really closely to a very like mottled, pale, sickly kind of pink color and some deeper reds to remind you of the inside of the mouth. And then I added a couple flashes of blue, again to sort of bring out the veins on the back of the tongue. I think that she looks pretty gnarly and nasty. Oh, one thing I almost forgot. She also, instead of having eyelids, she has two mouths, so you can actually see that her eyelids are lips instead. Yeah, she's looking pretty grotesque, honestly. I hope I didn't give you guys nightmares. Next up, let's do the sense of hearing. So my first idea for this one, which you will see me sketch, is actually creep me out too bad, and I didn't want to render it or color it or see it anymore, but I'll show you guys how far I got with it. So originally I had sort of an Uzumaki inspired idea for hearing, where I would really focus on the spiral both of the cochlea as well as the sort of like spiraling into a dark hole that you see in somebody's ear, and I was going to make those little pits in the character in various different spots and really focus on the spirals and the holes, but I do have a bit of tryptophobia. So I didn't want to do it anymore. Also, I just felt like at this point I had drawn two sort of girl-shaped characters, and I wanted to make a slightly less human looking monster design. So I ended up scrapping this and instead focusing on something more animal-like. I actually just looked up animals with acute hearing on Google, and some animals came up that I thought would make an amazing combination. So I actually have the ears of a fennec fox and the, I want to say faceplate, the face of a barn owl. Barn owls already look kind of beautiful and creepy to me, so I thought this would be perfect for a monster design. And then I had a sort of long extended neck, and I wanted the body to be more human. I was actually like strongly inspired by this character. I think I might draw them again. For some reason I'm picturing that they're like like this academic older professor type character, and that they are very sensitive to sound, and when they hear you in the library they stab you with their tuning fork, which you will see in their hand. I also made sure to put some talons in place of fingernails, and I think that also creates a creepier image of this character. I can picture them slashing and grabbing you really hard on the arm, and like those talons cutting in, and them just looking at you with that strange alien face that does not emote the way that human faces emote. So I tried to draw the character in a position where it looks like they've just picked up on something. They've heard something in the distance, a rustling or something like that. And I also wanted to stick to some warm, dark academia kind of like burgundy colors. I thought it would be perfect. And I had the whole like head and body of the character quite light, again because of the barn owl and the fennec fox having this sort of like lighter tawny or cream color. I really like this character. I think that they are, I don't know, they're intriguing to me. I think I will do more digging into this character, and they might even end up in my next comic project. I am not sure. This is my hearing monster who's carefully listening for you, and God forbid that you should make too much noise around them. Next up, we have the sense of touch. Now this one is one that I actually felt like I had done before, and I realized why. It's because I've actually done a love languages as monsters video before. Definitely check that one out after this one if you want. I'll put it in the end card so you can just click on over. But because of that, I've already done a touch-oriented monster design. However, this was not the sense of touch. This was sort of like touch as like physical affection. So I tried to lean more into the actual sensation of reaching out and touching things. So I wanted to have this sort of like smothering face covering with the hands kind of motif. In my original touch monster, the hands were around the head and formed kind of a shape around the head, but it wasn't as much like the hands were covering the nose and mouth, which was the scary, suffocating sort of feeling I wanted to give off. And then I have these sort of like fractal hand antlers that I built on top of her. I also decided to give her kind of this haunting, almost sort of Victorian style dress that have these long rubbery hands coming down off the sides, and it looks like part of the dress until you look closer and realize that it's basically like these rubbery long gloves that are filled with something. She feels almost like a ghost to me, like a ghost that would wander the halls and you would constantly feel her sort of like reaching out and tapping you on the shoulder, and she's trying to tell you something but she can't because the hands are covering her mouth, and it's something that she desperately needs to communicate but she can never actually say it. So she's just always around, lightly patting you on the head or reaching out to grab the edge of your sleeve, the type of thing that wouldn't be too bad at first but would slowly drive you mad because you wouldn't be able to ever get her to stop. She's always on the verge of telling you something. That's kind of the vision I have for this character. And she also has these little chunks out of her arm. I felt like I needed something like this, like it almost looks like the imprints of someone grabbing her arm, so that's kind of what I was thinking. And then I also included some imagery of the nerves off the fingertips of her fractal antler hands thing that's going on with the top of her head. So that's mainly my big inspiration for her. You'll see some other hands hidden about in this design if you look closely as well. Last up, we have the sense of smell, and at first I was totally not looking forward to this one. I felt like smell is not as scary of a sense as the other four, and I really wasn't sure what direction to go with it at first, but then I quickly realized the main inspiration that I wanted to use for this character, and that is the cadaver dog. A cadaver dog is a trained type of dog, a working dog that specifically is trained to alert at the smell of a dead human being. They're not tricked by dead animals. There's a very specific smell that they're going for, and they're apparently very, very effective at their job. So that's already kind of a morbid and creepy job for a dog to be doing. But on top of that, I also wanted to involve some other scary things like the red rose. Now, a red rose, of course, can be a romantic thing, but I feel like roses also have like a dark gothic twist as well, so I thought it would work well with this creepy sort of design. I accidentally maybe ended up making like a furry dreamboat character, which was not my goal or my intention, but yeah, if that is what I've done, I am sorry. I wanted him to be scary. I put some patterning on his face that looks like a human skull a little bit, so I'm gonna make that more and more clear as I continue to color him. I also have this sort of creepy veil that I put over the top of his ears. I feel like this makes an interesting shape, and it also just speaks to this, like, the veil between life and death a little bit. So my idea for the story of this character is that he is sort of like he tracks down missing people, but he's only able to do that if they are already dead. He has like a connection to the underworld because as a puppy he like almost passed away, and that has forever tethered him halfway between life and death, and so he uses his ability to answer the prayers of anyone who wishes to find a missing person, but by getting his services you're almost guaranteeing that the person who he will find is in fact already dead. So it's sort of like a catch-22. He answers questions for people who do not want to hear the answer. That is my vision for this character. I also feel like he kind of looks a little bit like Anubis in a way, which I think just comes along with any sort of death dog design. That is another sort of accidental thing that I think it makes his design kind of cool. So here are all my monsters designed after the 5 senses, or the 5 basic senses. I hope you guys enjoyed watching me design them. It is October, so prepare for a lot of spooky content. And again, if you have any ideas for what to name these characters, I will be picking my favorites and putting them pinned to the top of this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you so much to my members and patrons, including Among Us Skibbity, Kristen Kobitz, Kira Kira, Gold Pikachu, Skitten2, Yume Lily, Jamie C, Data, Misty Raven, Artist James, Loro, Foxglove, Random World, Lily McFarlane, Becca, Casey, Elliot Graham, Anastasia Eve Siva, Viet, Graveyard Moss, Grexiest, Olia, Maddie Momo, Brandon Stark, CB, Lucy Amajiki, Liv Liv, Ravens Crow, Zalsalat, T Hill Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Kadaria, Astral Fox Art, The Expressive Poker Face, Subaki, Cutie Pie, Ice Cream Pal, Kola, JJ Jade, and of course, blah 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 blah.